Hi all, my name is Henry and welcome to Tuonela Crafts. Today I'll be showing you my way of painting SKAVEN Grey Seer in almost completely NMM or non-metallic metal style. Only metal color I use is a runefang steel, which I decided to use as an effect to make the orb really glow beneath the warp lightning contrast. Also want to mention that this footage is actually recorded quite a long time ago and I kinda accidentally stumbled on it when searching through my computer. But I really wanted to make this video happen and here we go. Right from the beginning I'm doing things a bit differently than I used to do. Instead of actually going with the correct color all the way straight away, I used basilicanum grey as a undertone for the whole thing to make the shadows and highlights appear. And it was quite different than I used to do, but it actually worked quite well in the end result. After painting the whole model with basilicanum grey, I switched into azurement blue to give that bluish tint or hue for the whole cape. This was a bit of an experiment for myself as well, but I think the end result was quite good. In the contrast paints itself doesn't really have that kind of a color that I wanted for the cape or the cloth, so that's the reason why I decided to do this way, but I think it worked quite well, especially when we're going to do some more layering on it. As you can see here, I have painted over the whole hood part of the cape, but that will be changing in the end. Here I use some hair dryer to really speed up the process of drying the wash. Then I start layering with the fang and also higher layering with the Celestra grey. Of course the fang having the bluish color, but I really like how it's more like a earthly tone and like a broken blue. And also the Celestra grey having that bluish tint to it, so it kind of really works well as a highlight. Most of the shadows and highlights have the contrast done itself already, so it's not even that big of a deal to do, but of course it always pops up things more. In the beginning you might have seen that I did the whole undercoat with wraithbone, so that's the reason why I'm actually touching up things again, and this is the way I mostly do things with contrast paints and well, everything basically, especially with contrast paints because they are translucent or they can see through the color below. So I touch up all the things with the base color again, and I think it's even a faster way to do it this way because you don't really have to worry that much on the first layers, they can go a bit over. It's a lot quicker to actually go afterwards and touch up than trying to be really neat with the first colors. And as you might notice there, I painted over the whole hood and now I'm going over it with the Flesh Tearers red contrast and then layering it with Mephiston red. And I think it really works well. Also after layering with Mephiston red, we're gonna go still with Uriel yellow to really pop up all the higher points. The painting over the hood is a good example on the fact that you don't always have to really have the plan at the beginning. You can always change things when you go forward. Of course it can be sometimes quite time consuming, but it will reward in the end, usually at least. Next we're gonna go with Corregranto Fur on the ropes itself. I don't actually have footage on that, they're already painted in this, but then I use basilicanum grey to get the stones in the end of the rope. After that I use some Gulliman flesh to go over all the flesh stones, and I forgot to show it here, but I use also the Magus purple to go on the end of the tail. Then I use some wildwood to go over the stick or the rod of the Grey Seer. It really is a nice tone for this a bit older kind of a wood. It really dries in a nice pleasant way and it's almost no highlighting needed for it to look good. Then use Skeleton Horde contrast color for all the bone parts, one of my favorite colors on the contrast series. Also the Skeleton Horde is quite perfect to be used in like scrolls and or parchments or that kind of things, as you can see here. And then again, we go back with some raised bone to touch up on things that we have maybe overcolored or maybe decided to do differently. So yeah, that's my favorite part basically. Then we're gonna use the runefang steel, the only metal that we'll be using in this character, and that will be going on the orb. That is only in there, and the whole idea is to later on color it with warp lightning. Because of the opacity of warp lightning, you can see the glitter of the metallic parts of runefang steel beneath the contrast, and it looks really amazing. It has that kind of a depth to it, and I really like the effect. It doesn't really show it in the camera that well, but in the hands or in the table it looks amazing. I also use warp lighting to do the eyes for the Grey Seer, as well as I've done for my other SKAVEN units. I really love using contrast color as especially for doing the eyes, because it flows so easily in the recesses of the model, so it's highly easier to do in this way than just using normal colors, at least for me. I don't know, it might be easier other way for you guys. Then we're gonna go with Agaras Dunes, which is my way of doing the non-metallic copper kind of a bronze kind of thing. Not that much of a bronze, but like copper kind of a zone. It works really well, especially when used with some layering on it. When I'm doing some iron in non-metallic metal style, I use the Basilicanum Grey as a base and then do some layering, for example with Grey Seer. It's not done in this model that much, but it's the way I do it in other my SKAVEN army models. Then we're gonna go with Black Templar on the fur of the smaller rats. And yeah, that's about it. And again we're gonna go over with some raid spawn on the places that we have maybe painted over or decided to change afterwards. This really, as I mentioned before, does bring me some kind of a freedom of doing, and also the freedom of mind in a sense that you don't really have to worry that much on painting over places, because you can always go back with raid spawn and then just fix it up with the contrast paints, and I love that way of doing things. And again we're gonna use the Gulliman flesh for the rats' faces and hands. I did this now because I believe on doing darker tones first for the contrast paints. It doesn't really matter that much if I overspill on the black tone right there, because it just doesn't show. And here I am again using the Makos purple for the tails. As I mentioned before, warp lightning will be also going for the gems and the stones on the arms of the rat. Then to really make the copper look old and used, we use Nihilak oxide to really make that patina on, or the oxidization of the metal in there. I used brush to really go plenty on it, but then I used like a Q-tip to just wipe off all the excess on the surface and just leave it on the recesses of the model. And I think it really works amazingly well. And as you might see here, I have done already some layering on the horns of the Grey Seer. I think I did use some Wraithbone, or might have been the Screaming Skull. Most likely the Wraithbone, and it works really well. It makes that the horn tips a bit more lighter than the rest of the horn, and it looks cool. Then we go for the base. The Steel Legion Drab is the one I use as a base color for all my models, mostly all my models. And just go plenty on it. I use some cork, like this cup holder thing, as a rocks for the model. And just go with the Steel Legion Drabs, put some astrogranite debris on the base for behave as a rock, to make the cork seem more believable. Then just put some Stirland mud, and with some tufts of grass and some final highlighting with some, I think it was Skeleton Horde or even Wraithbone on the end of the metallic parts, the cover parts. It really makes it stand out nicely, and you can say the model is right now finished. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and let's end with some footage of this in the action.
The Grey Seer visited every Skaven stronghold up and down the Underway. They gave a single ultimatum: be at the annual feast of Vermintide or suffer the wrath of the great horned rat.